Alright, welcome to another episode of Dirtcheapdaily. This episode is all about converting your Subaru to rear-wheel drive. So that includes pulling apart your transmission, welding the center differential, sealing your transmission, and what you're supposed to do about your front axles. If you've ever Googled how to convert your Subaru to rear-wheel drive, you'll see a bunch of forums that have a bunch of hate in them, mostly just people telling you, oh, rear-wheel drive, don't buy a Subaru, or go buy a Nissan, something to that extent. But actually converting to rear-wheel drive is a very, very, very simple thing to do if you have access to a 220 welder or some other form of welding. So we weld our center differential, which puts equal power to front and rear at all times, instead of it being able to decide and shift power from front to back. And then you always have power going to the rear. The way the transmission is set up, it will put power to the wheel that has the least resistance. So if you just pull the front axles out of your Subaru, you will go nowhere. All the power will be put to the front, and just your front axle stubs will spin. So you have to weld the center differential for it to work. Now, if you ever want to go back, it's totally easy to do. All you do is put front axles back in, and you put in a new differential that is not welded. You're back to all-wheel drive. So it's pretty easy. If you do want to go rear-wheel drive, it's easy enough to go back to all-wheel drive if you need to. Having a rear-wheel drive Subaru is going to be great. I already own the car. I've done a bunch of different modifications to it, put on a bunch of aftermarket parts. I want rear-wheel drive. It's not going to be a serious race car anyway, so I'm not really worried about those people who talk about the suspension being set up for all-wheel drive and it being a hindrance. The other thing is the stock dual overhead cam EJ25 is a pretty gutsy little motor. It's really fun to drive around, even all-wheel drive, and I figure putting all that power just to the rear wheels will be even more fun. A lot of issues that you'll hear about with running rear-wheel drive on a Subaru, most of the issues you're going to hear about are on 2000 and up, and you have a bunch of different issues with newer models anyway. I personally think that they are built weaker just because in the 90s everybody overbuilt everything, and then in the 2000s they realized, oh, we're overbuilding, so we can cut back. And so putting all of my power to the rear wheels with a stock engine, I shouldn't have any issues braking rear differentials, braking second gear. If I'm not just totally drifting it all the time, my rear axles should be alright. I'm not putting a serious amount of power or torque through that transmission, through the rear driveline and rear axles and rear differential. So I think I'm going to be able to stray away from some of the issues that people have when they do convert their Subaru to rear-wheel drive. So I already have the transmission out of the car because I'm doing a manual swap. This is the same procedure that you do with it in the car. Obviously you're going to have to take off a couple more bits and pieces for you to be able to get the transmission apart, but it's a pretty easy thing to do. Now if you were going to do this to a 2000 or newer Subaru, the center differential is a little different, and it actually slides out all by itself, so you're going to have an easier time welding that than what I had, which was the whole kind of nose and tail shaft section that comes out with the differential. And again, if you ever want to switch back to all-wheel drive, you just buy a new center differential that's not welded, put it back in there, and you're good to go. Okay, so we are going to pull this back cover off to get to the rear differential. So we're going to pull this off just because it's easier to work with. Your whole linkage assembly, you're doing the same thing if this is in the car versus like what I'm doing out of the car. So these ones are going to be 12mm and these ones are all 14. So pulling this off first, and then these ones are on the outside. Alright, so I'm over at my house and I don't have all my tools, which always makes things kind of exciting, but do what you can. You can see how much flex is in that stock tranny mount. It's kind of a lot. Definitely going to want to think about a stiffer transmission mount. Yep. Figured that was gonna happen. So it just sheared right off. That's kind of a bummer. Kind of a big bummer. But we'll do what we can. I think I'm gonna need some of my tools to be able to do this for real. Shoot, it's not moving. The crazy thing is that as soon as I can get this dumb thing out, I will be able to just stick vice grips on there and take it out. The only thing that's sticking on is the actual housing. So I'll be able to go and get a new bolt for it, which is going to be really nice. It's coming. It's real slow. Okay, so when you're in a pinch and you don't have any penetrating oil, I don't really recommend this, but you can use brake fluid. And this is definitely not the way you want to do this when you're doing it yourself. But unfortunately, you do what you can, and this is about all that you can do. Alright, did that just go? Just go. Yeah. What's holding on now? Ha! There we go. Okay, so what you're actually going to be welding, you're going to weld these two gears where they mesh. This is your spider gear, and this is your output gear. And same on this side. So output and then the spider gear up in there. And all you're going to do is weld so that the spider gear is always connected, because you can see when I can turn one in the inside of it slightly, and it kind of turns. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna weld that, and I think I'm just gonna leave it all in here as one piece.
Want the old time?
Yeah, let's hold. Deal.
It's not gangster like you. I value my skin.
Alright.
Turn up the wire speed? This machine is worn out. It's like max, and I'm welding like, I have it on max just to weld everything. I gotta get more. happened just the other day. Oh yeah, dude.
Looks good to me.
Oh yeah. That's not moving.
Sweet.
You can tell this thing's just chuck full, like those pores are full of oil.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, jeez.
There's no winning, it's just burn it out.
Yeah. Make it so nothing can move. It's puking.
What do you need?
I'm just flipping it over so I can get down into those ones. The top.
Looking good. Oh yeah. One more corner, huh?
Yep.
How hard is it to pull this unit out? Is there a snap ring back here? Because this is just, looks like just a cap or something.
Yeah, there's just a snap ring in there that I pulled off already trying to get it off. I think it's just the bearing that's holding it in.
But this whole unit though, you undo these bolts?
Yeah, it's just these like 8
and then it
bolts.
slides right out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and just one of these, this guy was like, the bolt was corroded to this part so it wouldn't spin, and when I pulled a breaker bar and it just busted the head off.
Dude,
I was
that's
like,
the worst.
well, getting some screwdrivers and mangling
Oh, dude, that's
the edge.
You got it out though, of the tranny part?
The bolt? No,
Yeah.
not yet. I didn't try. I think it was mainly corroded to this part. The stuff in the tranny, the threads looked fine. The ones that were real close. I just need to grab vice grips and
Dude, that's
unscrew it.
Especially under a car. Oh my head.
Well, it's out of the car.
Oh, it's out?
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
So I'm doing the manual swap probably on Monday. It's super easy though.
I
Like,
imagine most foreign cars, it's like everything's pre-drilled.
Yeah.
And just like
it just bolts in. Like there's like
Everything's
little rubber
already-
bungs,
yeah.
and it's pretty cool.
That Dodge I did, dude, what a nightmare. I had to cut and drill and
All right. Oh yeah, get that slag out. Wow. I guess you could like fill in everything, huh?
yeah. I used to seriously like, oops. I used to weld like all
all
there
the
and
way
then weld this bar. But I heard like welding the bar is what'll end up. I tacked the bar, you can see, but
Right.
yeah, I used to like really try to weld it.
I figure it doesn't matter. Like as long as you get something in between the spider gears and like the
Yeah.
output gears.
Yeah, as you can see, you can snap it. I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
I didn't. Just when I showed you, I knew one was cracked, but yeah, that's pretty.
Definitely glad I came and used a 220.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder if you could hit that corner up there.
Yeah.
I'm not getting splatter going back into these gears because it was like sending the wire through to the back. about it. I don't see it.
Cool. Well, it doesn't feel like there's anything in there.
No, we're good then. Sweet. False alarm. It's gonna look too long to see.
Yeah. That's crazy. They're all broken.
I know, I didn't know that until I was showing you.
And even the one on this is cracked. I guess it would be, but for them to be able to move. Okay, so now we're back after welding that, and we're going to get this guy off. Hopefully. That would be the best case scenario, right? Basically, I'm just trying to make these vice grips as tight as I can. Okay. There we go. And you can loosen it now a little bit so it's easier to get on and off. Slightly. And it's that easy. The hard part about this is getting the dang snout off. Okay. There's that. Now I'm going to go to the hardware store and pick up another one of these. Okay, so here I'll show you the damage I did to the mounting surfaces. So over here you can see a gouge right here and right here. I can point with this maybe. Down here is pretty bad. The gouge comes all the way 2/3 of the way in. Up here isn't that bad. Here's a good one, and that goes about 2/3 of the way in, and then up here and up here. But luckily none of them went, there's not, like there is a gouge here and here, but luckily there's not huge gouges all the way on the inside because I can still put a bead of RTV around there and it'll seal it up just fine. So as bad as it was for the transmission, it's not the end of the world, which is good. And it looks to be about the same situation on this side of it as well. Now you could just buy a new gasket, but RTV works just as well, and I've had success with it, so I'm going to just RTV it instead of getting another gasket. It's cheaper because I have the RTV on hand anyway, and you can get RTV at Walmart for like $6.97, and I'm sure a gasket would be about 10 bucks. So RTV will do it. Now that we have some good light, I'll show you what we did in here. You can see in there. It's still pretty hot, which is good because that means we got really good penetration. So there were those gears in there, and it's just like the it's kind of hard to see without another light source. Anyway, it's just like that rear diff that I showed you, only it's on the inside. So that should hold up pretty well, even if it breaks like Eric's did. There's enough material in there that I don't think I'm going to have any issues, which is a big plus. So now I'm going to spend some time with a pick and a screwdriver, and just going to jam it in there a bunch and make sure there's no slag that's going to come off. Like here's obviously some big chunks of slag. Anyway, take it in there and clean it off. So you just kind of jam it down in there a bunch, and then since this one's magnetic, it pulls up chunks, which is even better. Some of them will just drop straight through, which is nice. shove it down in there and try and knock off. Oh, like right there. Good thing I kept going. Alright. Then you're going to want to grab some brake clean and spray the crap out of it. Mine's gone. I have more over at my brother's house, but for now, that's all you want to do. Spin it around, take a rag, and just kind of, as you spin it, hold the rag on and it'll pull off any chunks. You also want to go through and make sure there aren't any pieces that are stuck on your gears. And mostly you'll be able to feel those as you turn it. There'll be a chunky spot. There should have been so much oil in there that nothing really stuck. The slag anyways. And I'm just using my magnetic screwdriver to go in and pick up all the pieces I'm seeing on the teeth. Like right there, there's one. Got that off, and there's one up here. Yep. You turn it some more. And mostly, that's pretty good. I'm gonna call that good on my end. I'm gonna spray it down really good with brake clean. With that done, I put the lock washer back on, or the lock ring back on, and now I'm gonna take a razor blade and get off all of the old gasket. So you just take your razor blade and just kind of slide it along the whole face and get off all the old gasket. Just remember the aluminum is really soft, so you can cut into it and take slivers out of it pretty easy with the sharp blade. So just go easy on it. So that's good for that one. You also want to do it to this cap plate. If you took it off, I'd suggest just leave this on there. Because it's time consuming to do this, and it kind of sucks. So I have my Ultra Gray by Permatex. It's some great RTV. So to do this, you want to just put a bead, obviously clean off the surface, which I already did. Then you run a bead around the whole perimeter on the inside of your bolt holes. Like that. I'm also going to go around this backside because I'm not sure if it gets anything on it or not. Okay, so there's that. And then with these, just leave it, squeeze a little bit out of the top, just like that, and just leave it to dry like that. When you want to use it again, either cut down lower or just pull this out and you'll be good to go. Don't try and put a cap on it or anything. If you do, it'll probably just get stuck. So, here we go. Wipe it out one last time, just with your hand. Wipe off your other sealing surface. go. Apply it right on. I got kind of a chunk of RTV on me, which I'm not sure where it came from, but oh well. There's that one last one that just broke off on me, right? When I was picking up my flywheel bolts, I grabbed one of these, and so I didn't even have to go to the hardware store to get a new one. Maybe. Oh, it's just so chunky. Is that the right one? Yeah? Okay, so I need to grab a pick or a screwdriver. So I'm not tightening them with this, I'm just running them in till they're snug. So now you want it to look just like that. You want it tightened until it just barely starts spitting out. So we're also going to put this back plate on, and really you don't ever have to take this off. Put it on like that. Okay, there we go. All right. So that's set up and ready to go. This one's rear-wheel drive, right? So I welded the center diff in it, and it's back together now, and tightened up. This is the inner cup of a CV axle. And so what I'm gonna do is just install this on the transmission. So going rear-wheel drive, just like on a rear differential, when you weld the rear differential, you're welding it so that all the power goes to both axles, or both output gears. When we welded our center differential, we made it so output was sent to both directions equally. And in that case, in the center differential, that means it's gonna put half the power up to the front and half the power out the rear, out our drive shaft. So we're still going to have power going to our front axles, so you have to remove those. But you don't want to just completely remove them, because there's a carrier bearing in here. And this one's good still, because it doesn't wiggle or anything. But the carrier bearing needs something to keep this axle stub from pulling out or doing something funky, because that's going to be spinning just as fast as the rear drive shaft. So we're going to pin half an axle cup into the front so that we don't have any issues with the axle stub moving in and out. Now to do that, what I did with these ones, I went to the junkyard and I found a CV axle that was blown, and I cut it apart like I'm going to do this to this one, and I'll show you what you do. Once you have that, you take this and you just slip it on there and pound in your roll pin, and you're done. So you want to put this in once you get it up in the engine. The bottom bolts are way easier to get in without anything on the CV or the axle stub. So we're gonna wait and put this in later. I'm also gonna clean it out a little better, just so it doesn't throw grease all over. I'm gonna grab my sledge and I'm just gonna go ahead and knock off this brass piece. It doesn't really need it, and it's full of rocks. And then you line up the splines so that the hole will line up, just like that. And they'll turn. Then you just line it up that way and go ahead and run that pin right into it. but we're going to wait to do that until it's actually in the car, because getting this bolt in is way easier with nothing here. So that's what we're doing. Gets kind of messy. There you go. Got your inner cup, your outer cup. That should work really good. Alright, so I have both my cups. So we also are going to pull off the outer CV cup the same way, because the same thing with our axle stub bearing, we have our wheel bearing that also needs support. And so if you're not running an axle in the front, the wheel bearing can shift around side to side. So we are going to pull these off, and just when we're done, we'll slide these into the wheel bearing and in the hub assembly and tighten them down with some Loctite. So to pull this one off, these ones are aftermarket ones, so they're set up a little differently. But pull that off. We're going to do the inside one too, the littler one, just because it's easy enough to get those off, and then you can slide it down like that. Well, anyway, pull that down. This one has a ton of grease in it because it was still good. It had some cracks in the boot, but for the most part it was still good. So then you just pull it back, and same like we did with the other one, grab your sledge and maybe just beat it off. Now those ones are really easy to come off because they pull off the whole end of the axle, and it actually leaves the CV joint, the actual bearings and everything, in this end of the cup, which is fine. I think I'm just gonna soak these in brake clean so that we can get them cleaned off, because they don't need to be greasy, and I don't want them throwing grease all over the inside of my all over the undercarriage of the car. So we have that. I'm gonna put that one in the bucket with this one. You can see they're a bit different. These aftermarket ones that I pulled off, they have this extra gear on them. I guess it's not a gear, it's just like a cover. So you can just knock them off like that. And yeah, this aftermarket one is bigger. But either way, it'll work. It's going to do the job we need, because we just need stubs to stick in the hub assembly so our wheel bearing doesn't fall out, and onto the axle stubs on the transmission so that we don't have any issues with our ring and pinion on the inside. So those go in the bucket. Okay, so we've taken care of basically everything. So now we're going to pull the CV joint out of the CV cup, the outer cup. So there's not really a trick to this. Besides having a big screwdriver. So, and a big hammer. Basically, the way to do this is to kind of pull it around so that each ball bearing is exposed, and so you can get each ball bearing out. Once the ball bearings are out, the whole thing will just drop out. This one is the original OE quality, and it's been a lot more difficult than the aftermarket. It could also be that my hands are already all slippery. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to come back to this one because, frankly, the only reason you need to get these out is to clean out the grease. And it's a lot easier to do that with them out, but it's not impossible to do it with it in, especially if you have a pick like this. You just do that with a rag you're ready to throw away. Just like that. You just hope that it won't be shooting grease all over the inside of your wheel. So that's the worst, really. Okay, well, that's good enough. We're gonna stick it in. Try to get cleaned off a little bit. That's one of the messiest jobs of this whole thing. Okay. Okay. Alright, so I have these outer CV cups, and we're just gonna slide it right in all the way in, just like that, on both sides. And so we have our bolt that's gonna go on, and I'm gonna shove this full of thread lock. So this is the same thing as Locktite. It's the blue, so it's the medium hold, the removable stuff, but I don't want these falling off, obviously. Okay, so I got some Locktite in there on the thread. Now is kind of the tricky part, because you have to reach around. This would obviously be way easier with the tire off, but it's still doable with the tire on. We got our big axle nut, and make sure it's tightening. Yeah. Sweet. So those are on for now. Once I get the car back on the ground, I will torque them. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope it inspired you to even think about converting your Subaru to rear-wheel drive. There are a lot of people who have done it successfully. In the future, I am going to be welding my rear differential. I might find a rear LSD, the R160, although I have heard that that is pretty weak for just rear wheel drive. All the power going to that one differential can be pretty weak. The R180 out of the 6-speed is a reasonable upgrade. And for those of you making gobs of torque, you already have a ton of money in your car, and if you do want rear wheel drive, I would suggest looking into Nissan rear differentials. Yes, you have to get custom axles made, but if you're making that much power and you want rear wheel drive, you got the money to do it. So the next couple of weeks of Dirt Cheap Daily are going to be the final episodes of my manual swap, which should be pretty good for a lot of people who are wanting to put a manual in their automatic. Obviously, you can do the rear wheel drive conversion like I'm doing in the middle of your manual swap, which is great. I'm also going to have a video where I show you how to rebuild your shift joint, do a DIY short shifter, and a unequal length header DIY, all in one video because they're all relatively short. I might put them up as separate videos, but it's all going to be in the same week. But that will come after the manual swap finishes up. Once that is done, I start on the turbo. So I will be turboing the Legacy GT. I will show you how to safely turbo your non-turbo Subaru here in the next month or two. So stay tuned, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any content. Share with your friends so everybody can have a Dirt Cheap Daily driver just like us.